The desert wind howled like a restless spirit across the dunes of Xeris 7, dragging fine grains of rust-colored sand that stung exposed skin and coated every surface in a gritty film. Inside the battered command tent, Captain Ren Torvak hunched over a flickering holomap, his brow furrowed in concentration. His uniform was frayed at the cuffs, his boots scuffed from weeks of skirmishes, and exhaustion clung to him like a second skin. The ceasefire had held for 3 days, 3 fragile, tense days, but Ren knew better than to trust silence on a war-torn planet. Especially not when the enemy wasn't truly an enemy anymore, but something far more complicated. The Velani Dominion, a once hostile alien empire now fractured by civil war, its royal family splintered, its armies divided. And somehow, impossibly, one of its most wanted figures had just walked into his tent unannounced. She stood just inside the flap, silhouetted by the harsh desert sun, and for a moment Ren thought his sleep-deprived mind was playing tricks on him. But no, she was real. Tall, statuesque, with skin the deep, shimmering violet of twilight over alien oceans, and hair that cascaded in thick, silken waves of the same regal hue. Her eyes, large and luminous, glowed faintly gold, framed by lashes so long they seemed to cast shadows. She wore a form-fitting battle tunic of iridescent silver, slashed at the shoulder to reveal the smooth curve of her collarbone, and a belt of woven crystal hung low on her hips. There was no weapon in her hands, but Ren knew better than to assume she was unarmed. This was Princess Lyra Valen, the last surviving heir of the deposed Velani throne, rumored dead, declared traitor by her own brother, and now standing in his tent like she owned the sand beneath his boots. "Don't pretend you don't want me, human," she said, her voice a low, melodic purr that sent an unwelcome shiver down Ren's spine. A smirk played on her full lips, confident and knowing, as if she'd already read every conflicted thought racing through his head. "You've been watching the Dominion comms for weeks. You know I'm the only one who can end this war without turning Xeris 7 into glass." Ren straightened slowly, his hand instinctively drifting toward the sidearm at his hip before he stopped himself. Protocol demanded he call for backup, demand identification, treat her as a high-value prisoner or a threat. But something in her gaze held him still. It wasn't arrogance, not exactly. It was certainty, and exhaustion. Beneath the regal poise, he saw the shadows under her eyes, the slight tremor in her fingers as she brushed a stray strand of purple hair from her face. "I don't want complications, princess," he said evenly, keeping his voice steady despite the hammering of his pulse. "And you're about as complicated as it gets." Lyra stepped forward, her boots silent on the canvas floor. The scent of ozone and something floral, like night-blooming desert flowers, filled the air. "Complications," she laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "You think your little sandcastle of a base is safe? My brother's hunters are already on this planet. They tracked me through the ion trails of my escape pod. If they find me here, they'll burn this entire quadrant to ash just to be sure I'm dead." She tilted her head, studying him with those golden eyes. "So tell me, Captain Torvak, do you really want to send me away?" Ren froze. She knew his name. Of course she did. The Velani intelligence network was legendary. Still, hearing it on her lips felt like a violation, and a strange kind of intimacy. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his sweat-damp hair. "You can't stay here. My orders are clear. No contact with Dominion royalty, especially not fugitives." "Orders?" she scoffed, folding her arms. "From a council that's never set foot on this rock? From generals who think war is a game played on screens?" Her voice softened, just slightly. "I'm not asking for asylum, Ren. I'm offering you a chance to stop the bloodshed. My brother, Kalos, has gone mad. He's weaponizing the old terraformers, turning them into planet crackers. If he gets his hands on the Xeris core beneath this desert, he won't just win the war. He'll unmake entire worlds." Ren's stomach dropped. The Xeris core, a geothermal energy nexus buried deep beneath the dunes, was the reason both sides had come to this barren rock in the first place. Earth's coalition had sent him to secure it. The Dominion wanted to control it. But weaponizing it? That was beyond strategy. That was annihilation. Before he could respond, a sharp crack echoed from outside, the unmistakable sound of plasma fire. Shouts erupted. Boots pounded the sand. Lyra's smirk vanished, replaced by a warrior's focus. In one fluid motion, she spun and yanked the tent flap open. Chaos greeted them. 3 Dominion hunters, tall, armored figures with black carapace suits and glowing red visors, had breached the perimeter. They moved with terrifying precision, cutting down 2 coalition soldiers before anyone could raise an alarm. Their weapons hummed with lethal energy, painting the air with streaks of crimson light. "Down!" Ren shouted, shoving Lyra behind him as he drew his pulse pistol. He fired twice, twice, hitting the lead hunter in the chest. The armor sparked, but the alien barely staggered. These weren't standard troops. They were Kalos's elite, bio-enhanced and fanatically loyal. Lyra didn't stay down. She sprang up beside him, her hands glowing with a soft violet light. With a flick of her wrist, a shimmering energy whip snapped into existence, lashing out like a living thing. It coiled around the second hunter's neck and yanked him off his feet, slamming him into the sand with bone-crunching force. The third hunter turned, raising his weapon, but Lyra was faster. She leapt, twisting midair, and drove her heel into his visor. The glass cracked, and he stumbled back, disoriented. Ren didn't hesitate. He fired again, this time aiming for the joints in the armor. The hunter collapsed, twitching. Silence fell, broken only by the moans of the wounded and the distant wail of alarms. Lyra landed gracefully beside him, breathing hard but unharmed. Her whip dissolved into motes of light. "Told you I wasn't here to cause trouble," she said, though her voice lacked its earlier amusement. "Just to survive it." Ren holstered his weapon, his mind racing. Protocol be damned. If Kalos really had planet crackers, then every rule he'd been taught no longer applied. The war had changed, and so had he. "You're staying," he said, more to himself than to her. "But you follow my lead. No more surprises." Lyra arched a perfect violet eyebrow. "Oh, Captain," she murmured, stepping close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "You have no idea what kind of surprises I'm capable of." Over the next few hours, Ren coordinated a lockdown of the base. He reported the attack as a rogue Dominion incursion, omitting Lyra's presence entirely. It was a lie that could end his career, maybe his life, but he told it without hesitation. Meanwhile, Lyra moved through the medical bay like a ghost, tending to the wounded with hands that glowed faintly as she mended broken bones and sealed burns. The soldiers, wary at first, soon watched her with awe. She spoke softly to them in their own languages, somehow knowing them all, and offered words of comfort that felt ancient and true. Ren found her later near the comms array, her fingers dancing over the controls with unnatural speed. Holographic symbols he didn't recognize flared to life around her. "What are you doing?" he asked, arms crossed. "Tracing Kalos's fleet movements," she replied without looking up. "He's cloaked, but not perfectly. There's a resonance echo in the subspace bands, like a heartbeat." She tapped a sequence, and a star map bloomed above them. A single red dot pulsed near the outer rim of the system. "He's coming. Faster than I thought." Ren studied the map. "We have maybe 48 hours before he arrives in orbit." "Less," Lyra corrected. "He'll deploy ground teams the moment he's in range. He knows I'm here. He can feel it." She turned to him then, her golden eyes searching his face. "The Xeris core, it's not just energy, Ren. It's alive. A sentient geothermal consciousness. My ancestors bound it to our bloodline centuries ago. Only a Vellani royal can awaken it or destroy it. And your brother wants to destroy it," Ren guessed. "He wants to enslave it," she said grimly. "Bend its will to his rage. If he succeeds, he won't just win the war. He'll become a god of fire and ruin." Ren rubbed his temples. Gods, sentient cores, royal bloodlines, it sounded like myth. But he'd seen what Lyra could do. He'd seen the hunters. He couldn't afford to doubt her. "What do we do?" he asked. "We go underground," she said. "To the core chamber, before Kalos lands. If I can reach it first, I can seal the access tunnels, maybe even awaken its defenses. And if you can't?" Lyra's expression darkened. "Then we all burn." They left at dusk, under cover of a sandstorm that swallowed the horizon in a wall of ochre fury. Ren wore light armor, a rifle slung across his back, a satchel of rations and medkits at his side. Lyra carried nothing but the clothes on her back and a small crystalline dagger at her belt, though Ren suspected she needed no weapon. They rode a sand skimmer, its engine muffled, weaving through the dunes like shadows. For hours they spoke little. The desert stretched endlessly, beautiful and brutal. But as the storm raged around them, Ren found himself stealing glances at Lyra. There was a quiet strength in her, a resilience that went beyond royal bearing. She'd lost everything. Her family, her throne, her home. And yet she fought not for power, but to stop her brother's madness. "Why me?" he asked finally, raising his voice over the wind. "Why come to a human captain? You could have gone to your loyalists or the neutral systems." Lyra looked at him, her violet hair whipping around her face. "Because you're not like the others," she said simply. "You don't see me as a prize or a threat. You see me as a person." She smiled faintly. "And because when I watched you from orbit, yes, I spied on you, don't look so shocked. I saw you give your last water ration to a wounded scout. A human one. You didn't have to, but you did." Ren flushed, embarrassed. "That's just basic decency. To my people," she said softly, "decency is a forgotten art." They reached the entrance just before midnight. A fissure in the rock, half buried in sand, marked by ancient Velani glyphs that pulsed faintly in the dark. Lyra placed her palm against the stone, and the glyphs flared to life, bathing her face in violet light. With a deep groan, the earth split open, revealing a spiraling staircase descending into darkness. The air inside was cool and humming with energy. Bioluminescent fungi lined the walls, casting an eerie glow. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum became, a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated in Ren's bones. "This place," he whispered. "It feels like it's breathing." "It is," Lyra said, her voice hushed with reverence. "The core is dreaming, and soon it will wake." They walked for what felt like hours, the path twisting and turning through caverns of obsidian and quartz. Strange echoes followed them, whispers in a language older than stars. Ren kept his rifle ready, but no enemies appeared. It was as if the mountain itself was guarding its heart. Finally, they reached the core chamber. Took Ren's breath away. The cavern was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow. In the center, suspended in midair, floated a sphere of molten gold, pulsing, swirling, alive. Tendrils of light extended from it, connecting to veins in the rock like roots. The air shimmered with heat and power. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes wide with awe and sorrow. "It remembers me," she whispered. But before she could take another step, the chamber trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. A deep, guttural roar echoed from the tunnels behind them. "They're here," Ren said, spinning around, rifle raised. "Not hunters this time." Kalos Valen himself stood at the entrance, flanked by a dozen armored warriors. He was taller than Lyra, his skin a darker violet, almost black, and his eyes burned with crimson fire. His armor was forged from blackened star metal, etched with runes of domination. In his hand, he held a staff topped with a pulsing red crystal, the heart of dominion, an artifact of unimaginable power. "Sister," Kalos sneered, his voice like grinding stone. "You always were sentimental, hiding in the cradle of our ancestors, hoping the old gods would save you." Lyra turned slowly, her expression hardening. "I'm not hiding, brother. I'm protecting what you would defile." Kalos laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Defile? I will elevate it. With the core's power, I will purge the galaxy of weakness. Humans, rebels, traitors like you, all will be cleansed in holy fire." He raised his staff. The red crystal flared, and the ground shook violently. Cracks spiderwebbed across the chamber floor. The golden sphere above flickered, its light dimming. "No!" Lyra cried, rushing forward. But Kalos pointed his staff at her, and a wave of dark energy slammed into her chest, sending her flying backward into Ren's arms. Ren caught her, his heart pounding. "Are you okay?" She nodded, pushing herself up, blood trickling from her lip. "He's using the heart to suppress the core. We have to stop him." Kalos advanced, his warriors spreading out. "You cannot stop destiny, little sister. The core will bow to me, as all things must." Ren didn't wait. He opened fire, his pulse rounds ricocheting off Kalos's armor. Useless, but it drew the warriors' attention. They charged. What followed was a blur of motion and violence. Ren fought with everything he had, rifle, knife, fists, taking down two warriors before a plasma bolt seared his shoulder. He cried out, stumbling back. Lyra was already moving. Her energy whip lashed out, disarming one warrior, then another. She moved like lightning, graceful and deadly. But Kalos watched her with cold amusement. "You fight like father," he said. "Noble, feudal." He raised the heart again. This time, the dark energy struck the core directly. The golden sphere screamed, a sound that tore through the mind, and began to darken, its light turning sickly red. Lyra fell to her knees, clutching her head. No, it's hurting. It's in pain. Ren gritted his teeth against the agony in his shoulder and staggered toward her. What do we do? She looked up at him, tears in her golden eyes. The bloodline. Only royal blood can break his hold. But it has to be willing. A sacrifice. Understanding dawned on Ren. You can't. I have to, she said, standing. It's the only way. Before he could stop her, she ran not toward Kalos but toward the core. Kalos roared in fury and hurled a bolt of energy after her. Ren threw himself in its path. The impact knocked the breath from his lungs. He hit the ground hard, vision swimming. But Lyra reached the core. She pressed both hands against its surface, and her body began to glow with blinding violet light. Lyra, no! Ren shouted, struggling to rise. Kalos laughed. Foolish girl. You think your life can undo my will. But then the core responded. Golden light erupted, pure and fierce, engulfing Lyra. The chamber shook as ancient power surged through the cavern. The red taint vanished. The heart of dominion in Kalos's hand cracked, then shattered. He screamed, a sound of rage and disbelief, as the core's energy lashed out, throwing him and his warriors back into the tunnels. Silence fell, heavy and sacred. Lyra floated before the core, her body wreathed in light. She turned to Ren, her expression peaceful. It's awake, she whispered. Then her light faded, and she collapsed. Ren scrambled to her side, his hands trembling as he checked her pulse. It was weak, but there. She was alive. The core pulsed gently above them, its golden light warm and steady. The whispers in the chamber had changed. They were no longer mournful, but grateful. Ren lifted Lyra into his arms, her violet hair spilling over his shoulder. She was lighter than he expected, fragile and fierce all at once. Outside, the storm had passed. Stars glittered in the desert sky, cold and distant. But down here, in the heart of the mountain, something new had begun. He didn't know what came next. Kalos was wounded, not dead. The war still raged. But for the first time in years, Ren felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. And as he carried the alien princess into the night, her hand clutching his tunic like an anchor, he knew one thing for certain. He didn't want to let her go. Not now. Not ever. Dawn broke over Xeris 7 in streaks of burnt orange and pale gold, casting long shadows across the dunes. Ren carried Lyra through the silent desert, her breathing shallow but steady against his chest. The sandskimmer was gone, likely buried or destroyed in the night's chaos, but he didn't stop to look for it. Every instinct told him to put as much distance as possible between them and the core chamber before Kalos regrouped. He found shelter in a collapsed aqueduct system half buried in the eastern ridge, a relic from Xeris 7's brief colonization attempt decades ago. The tunnels were dry, cool, and defensible. He laid Lyra gently on a slab of cracked ceramic tile and used strips of his own uniform to bind the worst of her burns. Her skin still shimmered faintly with residual energy, warm to the touch, like sun-warmed stone. She stirred hours later, her golden eyes fluttering open. "You're still here," she murmured, voice hoarse. "Where else would I be?" Ren replied, pressing a canteen to her lips. "Trying to explain to command why I lost both a princess and a planet?" A weak smile tugged at her lips. "They'd court-martial you. They'd execute me," he corrected dryly. "But honestly, worth it." Her fingers brushed his wrist, light, almost accidental. But the contact sent a jolt through him. Not electricity. Something quieter, deeper. Before either could say more, the ground trembled. Not the deep resonance of the core this time, but the rhythmic thud of heavy machinery. Ren peered through a crack in the tunnel wall. A coalition dropship hovered low over the dunes, scanning beams slicing through the dust. Reinforcements or hunters disguised as allies. "They've triangulated my biometric signature," Lyra whispered, struggling to sit up. The core's energy left a trail. Ren cursed under his breath. "Then we move. Now." But as they crawled deeper into the aqueduct, another tremor shook the tunnel. Not from above, but below. The ceramic tiles cracked open, revealing not earth, but smooth metallic plating etched with Velani glyphs. A hidden passage. Lyra's eyes widened. This wasn't on any map. She pressed her palm to the metal. It glowed violet, then slid aside with a sigh, revealing a descending ramp lit by soft blue light. Reluctantly, Ren followed her down. What they found stunned them both. Beneath the desert lay a vast underground vault, a Velani sanctuary older than the Dominion itself. Crystalline trees pulsed with inner light. Pools of liquid silver reflected constellations that no longer existed. And at the center stood a throne of black obsidian, empty but radiating authority. "This is the Vault of Echoes," Lyra breathed, "where the first Velani monarch communed with the stars. I thought it was myth." As she stepped forward, a hologram flickered to life above the throne. An ancient Velani woman with eyes like galaxies and hair like nebulae. Her voice echoed in their minds, not in words, but in feeling. "The bloodline endures, but the air is divided." Suddenly, images flooded Ren's vision, memories not his own. A younger Lyra, laughing with a boy who looked just like Kalos, building star charts out of light. Their father, stern but kind, placing a crown on Lyra's head while Kalos watched from the shadows, fists clenched. Then war, betrayal, a knife in the dark. Lyra gasped, tears streaming down her face. "He didn't choose madness," she whispered. "He was broken. Our father, he favored me. Always me." Kalos believed he was protecting our legacy by purging weakness, including me. Ren reached for her hand. "That doesn't excuse what he's doing." "No," she said, wiping her tears. "But it explains it. And if I kill him, I become what he is." Before Ren could respond, alarms blared. Not mechanical, but psychic, resonating from the vault itself. The walls shimmered, showing real-time projections. Kalos's fleet had entered orbit. Worse, Coalition High Command had declared Lyra a Class Omega threat. Both sides now hunted her. And then came the twist neither expected. A new signal pierced the vault's shields, small, encrypted, human in origin. Ren recognized the frequency. It was from his old mentor, Admiral Coravelt, presumed dead in the Battle of Helios Reach 2 years prior. The hologram shifted. Cora's face appeared, gaunt but alive, speaking from a hidden rebel base near the galactic rim. "Ren, if you're seeing this, you found her. Good. Don't trust command. They've been compromised. Kalos isn't acting alone. There's a faction within Earth's coalition backing him, hoping to use the core to control all terraforming tech in known space." Ren's blood ran cold. "Velt, how did you?" "She found me," Cora continued, glancing off-screen. "Said you'd need proof." The image zoomed out slightly, revealing Lyra's personal sigil glowing on a console behind her. "She's been working with resistance cells for months, trying to expose the conspiracy. That's why she came to you, because you're clean, untouched by the rot." Lyra looked away, shame flickering across her features. "I should have told you everything. You were protecting me," Ren realized. "From your brother. From my own people." She nodded. "Trust is a luxury I can't afford. But I wanted to try. With you." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. A fragile bridge built of shared danger and reluctant honesty. Suddenly, the vault shuddered violently. A section of the ceiling exploded inward, showering them with debris. Through the smoke, figures dropped down, human soldiers in black tactical gear, bearing the insignia of the Coalition's elite Blackwatch division. But their eyes glowed faint red. "Neural implants," Lyra hissed. "Kalos's mind control tech. They're puppets." The soldiers opened fire without warning. Ren shoved Lyra behind a crystalline pillar and returned fire, pulse rounds sparking off their reinforced armor. One soldier lunged at Lyra with a vibro blade, but she twisted aside, driving her crystalline dagger into his neck joint. He collapsed, twitching. But there were too many. They advanced relentlessly, driven by alien programming. Just as hope began to fade, the vault itself responded. The crystalline trees flared with light, releasing waves of sonic energy that disoriented the soldiers. The silver pools rose like liquid whips, entangling limbs. The ancient sanctuary was defending its air. In the chaos, Ren grabbed Lyra's hand. "We need to get to your ship, the one you crashed in. It's cloaked near the northern mesa," she said. "But the path is exposed. Then we make our own path." Using the vault's shifting architecture to their advantage, they navigated a labyrinth of moving walls and gravity-defying corridors. At one point, Ren nearly fell into a chasm, but Lyra caught his arm with impossible strength, her violet eyes blazing with determination. "Not losing you," she growled. He grinned despite himself. Wouldn't dream of it. They emerged at the surface near dusk, the northern mesa looming ahead. But between them and safety stood a lone figure, Kalos. He looked different. His armor was scorched, his staff gone. But his eyes burned brighter than ever. He held no weapon. Instead, he extended a hand toward Lyra. "Sister," he said, his voice raw. "Come home. End this. Together." Lyra froze. "You're lying." "Am I?" Kalos's gaze flicked to Ren. "Or are you the one who's blind? He'll betray you the moment command offers him a promotion. Humans always do." Ren stepped forward. "I'm not your pawn, Kalos. And I'm not your excuse." Kalos sneered. "Brave words. But love makes fools of even the strongest." Then he did something unexpected. He knelt. "I renounce the heart," he said, pressing his forehead to the sand. "I renounce the throne. Take my life if you must. But spare our people. Spare the core." Lyra's breath hitched. "Why now?" "Because the vault showed me the truth," he whispered. "Not just your memories, but mine. I saw what I've become. What I've done." He looked up, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. "I don't want to be a god. I just wanted to matter." For a long moment, silence hung between the siblings. The wind carried the scent of ozone and regret. Then Lyra walked forward and placed her hand on his head. Not in judgment, but in blessing. "You already mattered, brother. You just forgot how to see it." Kalos wept. But the moment shattered as a shadow blotted out the stars. A massive coalition dreadnought descended, its hull bristling with weapons. Admiral Velt's warning echoed in Ren's mind. "They're coming for the core." "They won't take it," Lyra said, turning to Ren, her expression hardening into resolve. "Not while I draw breath. And not while I stand beside you," he replied without hesitation. Kalos rose, wiping his face. "I may not deserve redemption, but I can buy you time." Before they could stop him, he activated a beacon on his wrist, a signal that would draw every enemy ship directly to his location. "Brother, no," Lyra cried. "Go," he said, giving her a sad smile. "Finish what I started." As Kalos sprinted toward the mesa, drawing fire from the sky, Ren pulled Lyra toward her hidden ship, a sleek, organic-looking vessel shaped like a crescent moon. They boarded just as plasma bolts cratered the sand around them. Inside, the cockpit hummed to life at Lyra's touch. Stars bloomed on the viewscreen. But instead of fleeing, she input coordinates for the core chamber. "We're going back?" Ren asked. "The core chose me," she said, her hands flying over the controls. "But it needs a guardian, not a ruler. And I know someone stubborn enough to stay." She looked at him, golden eyes filled with something tender and terrifying. "Stay with me, Ren. Not as a soldier, not as an ally, as mine." His heart hammered. He thought of his orders, his duty, the life he'd known. Then he thought of her laugh, her courage, the way she healed wounded men without asking for thanks. He reached over and covered her hand with his. "Try and get rid of me." As the ship shot skyward, weaving through enemy fire, the desert below erupted in light. Kalos's final stand. But above the chaos, something new stirred. Not war, not conquest, possibility. And in the quiet hum of the cockpit, two souls from different worlds leaned closer, bound not by blood or rank, but by choice, and the unshakable belief that even in the darkest desert, something beautiful could grow. The sky above Xeris 7 burned crimson as Kalos's sacrifice tore through the coalition dreadnought like a dying star. His final transmission, raw, unfiltered, and broadcast across every open channel, exposed the conspiracy within Earth's high command. Footage of secret meetings, forged orders, and neural implant trials flooded the galactic net. Within hours, the tide turned. Coalition loyalists mutinied. Dominion holdouts rallied behind Lyra's name. And the war, after 7 brutal years, began to unravel not with a bang, but with a reckoning. Ren and Lyra didn't wait to see the fallout. With Kalos's distraction buying them precious minutes, they punched through the blockade in her crescent-shaped vessel, the Dawn's Whisper, and vanished into the folds of uncharted space. They weren't fugitives anymore. They were something rarer, architects of peace. Weeks later, they landed on Viridia, a world nestled in the azure spiral, untouched by war, where twin suns painted the sky in perpetual gold and violet. It was here, beneath trees with silver leaves and rivers that sang in harmonic frequencies, that the Velani survivors began to gather, not as soldiers or subjects but as refugees rebuilding. and at their center stood Lyra, not as queen but as guide. She refused the throne, declaring the old monarchy dissolved. In its place, she helped forge a council of voices. Human, Velani, and others who'd suffered under the war's shadow. Ren, discharged honorably from the coalition after testifying against the corrupt admirals, stayed by her side. He traded his rifle for a teaching post at the new academy, where he taught strategy not as a path to victory, but as a tool for understanding. Children of all species sat in his classroom, some with purple skin and golden eyes, others with freckles and messy hair, and he loved them all like his own, which, in time, they nearly were. Their bond deepened not in grand declarations, but in quiet moments. Shared meals under the twin suns, walks through bioluminescent forests, late-night debates about governance and poetry. Lyra laughed more than she ever had in the palace. Ren slept without nightmares for the first time in years. And then came the morning she woke with her hand pressed to her stomach, eyes wide with wonder. "It's happening," she whispered. Ren, still half asleep, mumbled, "What is?" "Our future," she said, tears glistening. "I'm carrying life. Ours." Velani-human hybrids were thought impossible, too genetically distant, too biologically incompatible. But the core had changed her, and love, it seemed, had rewritten the rules. 9 months later, beneath a canopy of singing blossoms, Lyra gave birth to twins. A girl with Ren's stubborn chin and Lyra's violet eyes, and a boy with silver-flecked skin and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. They named them Soren and Mela, names that meant dawn and harmony in the old Velani tongue. News of their children spread like wildfire, not as political symbols, but as living proof that unity wasn't just possible, it was already here. 5 years after that, on the anniversary of the day she'd walked into his tent and asked, "Can I eat with you, human?" Ren knelt in the garden of their home on Viridia. He held no ring. Velani tradition required no metal, but a single petal from the heart bloom, a flower that only bloomed when two souls were truly aligned. "Marry me," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Not as captain and princess, just as us." Lyra, her hair streaked now with strands of silver, pulled him to his feet and kissed him so deeply the trees around them shimmered in response. Their wedding was simple. No thrones, no fleets, no treaties. Just friends, family, and a feast under the stars. Soren and Mela danced barefoot in the grass, already fluent in 3 languages and full of mischief. Kalos, pardoned and living quietly as a historian in the southern valleys, gave a speech that made even the sternest elders weep. Years flowed like the singing rivers. More children came, 3 in total, each a blend of starlight and grit. Their home became a haven. Part library, part sanctuary, part chaotic playground where hover toys tangled in the vines and dinner often included dishes from a dozen worlds. Ren never wore a uniform again. Lyra never wore a crown. But together, they built something far more enduring, a legacy not of conquest, but of connection. Decades later, when their hair had turned fully silver and their steps had slowed, they'd sit on their porch watching their grandchildren chase fireflies that glowed in sync with their laughter. The galaxy had healed. New alliances flourished. And though shadows still lingered at the edges of peace, they no longer feared them, because they'd learned the truth long ago. Love wasn't the absence of war. It was the courage to plant gardens in the ruins. And on Viridia, their garden bloomed forever. Years melted into peace, their love a quiet force that outshone empires. Ren and Lyra built a home where purple-haired children laughed beneath twin suns. Their wedding, simple and starlit, needed no crown, only joined hands and shared breath. Soren, Mela, and little Kivin grew up fluent in both human jokes and Velani lullabies. Kalos, redeemed, taught history so the past would never repeat. The core slept peacefully, guarded not by armies, but by stories told at bedtime. Visitors came from across the galaxy, not to wage war, but to learn how enemies became family. Ren's old rifle gathered dust. Lyra's dagger hung above the hearth as a reminder, not a weapon. In their golden years, they still held hands during storms, just as they had in that desert tent.